Us live now is British MP Keith Vaz. Mr. Vaz, appreciate you joining us here. What a day it's turned out to be. Shocked just about everybody, including, of course, global markets, watching this development very, very closely. What does this now mean as far as the UK is concerned, and what does this mean now for the future of the EU?
Good evening. Yes, it is a very, very big shock. I don't think anyone expected this. When you have the leaders of all the main parties all supporting the fact that Britain should remain in the EU, to have this kind of result, even though it's a very close result, is a huge shock. And of course, what's happened is Prime Minister Cameron has resigned and he will be leaving office at the end of October. These are big, big, monumental events in our country, and they are very serious events, and these are events that do need to be dealt with, and we need to get some kind of steer as to what's going to happen. So Parliament will meet on Monday, another opportunity to move forward, but we are now in a leadership prime ministerial election. So the whole country will be concentrating on that, I think.
Since you're talking about the change in leadership and David Cameron, they're accepting moral responsibility for the way that this vote has turned out. Keith, was, Paul Krugman saying that it looks more likely that we'll have Prime Minister Boris as opposed to President Trump. In terms of succession now, what can we truly expect?
Well, in terms of India in particular, David Cameron was a great friend of India and worked very hard to develop that relationship. He visited India 4 times as Prime Minister, more than any other British Prime Minister. I think probably Boris Johnson will be the favourite. Other candidates will include the Home Secretary, Theresa May. I'm sure she'll put her name forward. And of course, George Osborne, the Chancellor. So there is obviously no absence of candidates prepared to run for the leadership of the Conservative Party. This has always been Boris Johnson's wish, and of course he now has the possibility of leading his own party.
Well, yes, we could see Boris Johnson take over from Prime Minister Cameron. But Keith Vaz, explain to us the process. You said that Parliament will meet on Monday. We've heard from the European Council saying that now that the decision has been made, the referendum is over and done with, UK must move as quickly as possible to start the process of disassociating itself, or denotifying, if I could use that word loosely, from the EU. What should we now expect in terms of milestones towards that eventuality?
Well, next week is the first milestone. Prime Minister comes before the House of Commons, sets out his timetable for the renegotiation. Next week, the European Council leaders will gather together, and I would imagine David Cameron will also be there. We will then have a number of issues that need to be discussed. When do you actually start the formal negotiations? Is he going to do it, or is he going to wait for the incoming Prime Minister? There's also the possibility there may well be a general election. So there are big issues that are to be considered. For a number of EU citizens, there are 3 million EU citizens living in the United Kingdom. There is now a question mark over whether or not they can remain here at the end of the negotiation period. That includes people of Portuguese nationality who are Indian citizens from Goa, Daman and Diu, who've just arrived in the United Kingdom. It includes a lot of Eastern Europeans who've come to settle here because of the free movement of people. So there are lots of big issues to do with nationality and freedom of movement that really do need to be considered.
How concerned would you be now about the disintegration of the EU itself? Alan Greenspan saying that the Brexit is just the tip of the iceberg. Others also weighing in with a similar possibility and warning that the political consequences of this result are far worse than what we imagine are the economic consequences. Do you see the domino impact of this now playing out across the EU?
Yes, I do, because we are actually very close to Denmark and Sweden, Finland and Holland. We've got a big affiliation with those countries. We've now got a Eurosceptic mayor of Rome who's just been elected. There's also the other issue of some of the countries of Eastern Europe who are very close to the United Kingdom in terms of what we are doing in the EU. So there are big issues, and what Boris Johnson or whoever is the next prime minister will need are specialists who are able to deal with this very complicated issue. And I think he'll need some very good and effective people to do that.
You know, we were talking to some economists who belong to the Brexit camp or the Leave camp, and they believe that this is really an opportunity for India specifically, as well as the UK, because the EU-India FTA hasn't really gone very far. There have been reservations on both sides, and perhaps this is being seen as an opportunity for direct negotiations between the UK and India. Do you believe that?
No, I don't, because Prime Minister Modi made it very clear that he wanted Britain to remain in the EU, because Britain has always been a gateway for India into the EU. So I don't think it'll make anything better for us in terms of our relationship with India. It might actually make things slightly worse. There are issues that need to be resolved regarding dealing with Commonwealth countries, and they need to be looked at. But this is just something that we need to consider in the future. I don't think it'll make trade with India easier, because we have been the gateway, we have been the central point through which trade has entered the EU. I think it'll be bad for both countries. It's going to take a long time to get this show on the road in the future, because so far it's just it's just about 24 hours or less than 24 hours since this has happened, and it's a big.
It is premature to talk about even the possibility of an agreement being negotiated between India and the UK, because the process of the UK coming out of the EU is going to be a long drawn one. But Keith Vaz, it's been a difficult morning and a difficult evening for you. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Keith Vaz, British MP, joining us live there from London.